I'll give you an example of like a resetting that just recently happened for me. So I'm obviously very big on the amount of reps that it takes. Like volume negates luck is the number one quote that we have in the sales team wall, so that the guys understand like it's just about the reps. And we just say it all the time. It's repeated over and over again because we also believe repetition of the same beliefs is something that will drive them to remember this thing, because we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. But recently, even getting into this content game, this was about a year ago, I was talking to Eric. And so Eric's a content creator who has, I don't know, 10, 15 million subscribers, something like that on YouTube. And we were saying, I was like, hey, what can we do to make our YouTube videos better? And so he said, oh, just send me over your prep case for the videos. And I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, you mean like the notes on my phone? He was like, no. And I was like, can you send me one of yours so I know what you're talking about? And so he sends me his most recent prep for one of his videos. And it was like 22 pages for like a 15-minute video. And I was like, oh, okay. So my understanding of how much work it takes to do something at this level is wildly under what the reality of it is at that level. And so I attended something, he invited me to like a little creator meetup with some of the biggest guys on YouTube. I'll just say it this way, you would know everybody in the room. And when we were there, they were all discussing how much time it took them to prep for videos. And a lot of these guys were spending 2, 3, 4 straight weeks of 12 hours a day to make one video per month. And I will tell you this, is that it was in no way surprising to me after going there for 2 days what it took and why those guys were the number one in that industry for making content that was exceptional. And so it completely reset my standard, reset my bar for how much preparation was required to be exceptional. And it was because, and this is why it's so silly for me, because I feel like I keep learning and relearning the same lessons, but just in new domains, is that the people who are doing way better than you are just working so much harder. And the thing is that people think that someone's working like 2 times as hard or 3 times as hard, because we tend to think in increments. We're like, okay, well, I work this much, someone must be doing twice as much work. But it's not even close to that. These guys are doing like literally 100 times the work. And it's not only that, they have a team of 10 people spending 4 weeks to prepare one 15-minute video. Like the order of magnitude in terms of effort there, do you multiply it by 10 times 12 hours a day, times 4 weeks, all of a sudden you really are at 1,000 times the work, 1,500 times the work to create, to be fair, an outcome that is 1,500 or 10,000 times better than the average YouTube video or whatever it is that you're making. And obviously I'm just using this as a content example, but it applies to anything. It applies to sales meetings, it applies to how you prep for a date, it applies to how you meet the parents or the in-laws. And so when we have founders who come into the portfolio, so when we invest in a company, one of the things that happens most commonly is a lot of them are running paid ads or they start running paid ads. So it's either way. So either they're running ads and they hit some sort of plateau, or they want to get into running ads. And so I'll tell you the story that I explained to almost all of them, which is I say, all right, how many, what do you guys spend in a day? And they're like, all right, we're spending 5,000 a day. Okay, fine. So how many new ads are you making per week? And a lot of time they're like, oh, we record ads once a month. And I'm like, okay, well, how many ads do you make? And they're like, usually 5 or 7 ads. And I'm like, okay. So let me give you some context. We make about 30 ads a week. And that's new unique video. Now that's not repurposing of that. That's 30 core pieces, which then get zillioned out in terms of like, let's take the hook from number 1 and put it as number 3 and then redo the same video. Those would be permutations that would go from 30 to like 100 pieces of creative. And as soon as I explain that, they're like, oh, and I was like, so you're doing 5 to 7 and you're complaining that you can't scale, but the reality is that you just can't scale given this level of creative. Like if your creative is a 5 out of 10, you can get to 5,000 a day profitably, but you're not gonna get to 50,000 a day profitably because you're not getting that 1 out of 100 ad that can scale to colder audiences or newer people. And so it's just if you have a mediocre ad, like many of you guys who start running ads are like, oh, I get it to $100 a day, but I can't get it to be profitable at $500 a day. It's like, yeah, because your ad is so bad, it can only go to the absolute hottest audience. And then as soon as it goes outside of that very hot audience that kind of knows you a little bit, it stops working, right? And so if you went from a 5 out of 10 ad to a 7 out of 10 ad, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can get to $500 a day. And if you get to an 8 out of 10 ad, you can go to a $5,000 a day, right? But the 9 out of 10 and the 10 out of 10 ads, like that's what converts the world. But in order to get that 10 out of 10 ad, you have to do so much more preparation before you do the ads and actual total volume of work of doing the ads itself. And so I share this stuff because my entire goal of this right now is to reset your expectations of the amount of preparation that it takes to be good. Because it's so easy. It's like mediocrity is so easy to do because you just do something and hey, anything's better than nothing. So if you're doing nothing, then absolutely start. But what happens is people are like, why isn't it working for me? And it's not working for you because you're not working nearly as much as as what is required to get that level of output, right? So let me tell you a different story. So I had a buddy of mine's a billionaire, and he wants to start making content, which is I'm a huge proponent of this because he actually has stuff to say, but he's still learning the content game, right? And so he's like, hey man, can you look at my Instagram and tell me, or sorry, can you look at my social media and tell me what I'm doing wrong or what I should be doing better? And so before I pulled up his thing, I was like, well, how many posts are you making a day across all platforms? And he was like, 1. I'm doing 1 a day right now. And he said it like that, kind of like, he was like, yes, I'm doing 1 a day right now. And I was like, all right, man. At the time, we were making 50 a day. We make more than that now. And he just looked at me and he was like, you don't need to say anymore. He's like, I got it. Like he understood in that moment the same thing I did when Eric showed me his prep case for his YouTube videos. I was like, I get it. Like he said, thank you for resetting my measuring stick. That's what he said. He was like, you reset my bar, reset my expectations of how much work it takes to get to that level that I want to get to. I share this stuff because I think one of the biggest gifts of surrounding yourself in a championship team. So there's a book by Angela Duckworth called Grit, which is a good book. But one of the things that they talk about in the book is that one of the best ways to develop grit is to surround yourself with people who have grit. So one of the for sure ways to get better at a skill is surround yourself with people who already have that skill, who are ahead of you. And so that's why joining a championship team is one of the best things you can do to understand what is required to win. And so when you're, the story that she tells in the book is swimmers who want to get better at swimming, if you can make the state team or whatever of like a championship team, all of a sudden there's standards of work that you didn't understand is what everyone's doing. So you go from like, oh, well, I'm swimming twice a week, and that's what you can do to be best in your high school or whatever. I'm making up the numbers. But when you go to the championship team, you realize that they do 3 hours a day, twice a day. And all of a sudden you're like, oh. And it's that same moment I had with Eric where I was like, oh. And the same moment my friend had when we talked about the social media was like, oh. It's just this massive bar reset of like, oh, this isn't like a 2 times as much thing. This is like a 50, 100 times as much. And so it's just, when you realize how much work it takes to get good, you realize how few things you can get good at. And that's where the focus becomes so important, because the only way to get that good is to do a few things. And so that's where the strategy of picking or prioritizing the things that you want to get good at becomes more important, because you just can't do 100 times the work on 100 different things.